With the 2025 season now coming up in a month and a half, I think it's time we look back at the 2024 season and rank the drivers based on their performance. Who's going into the 2025 season with a lot of momentum and who needs to pull their socks up? Today I will be giving out scores to the drivers based on how they did in the 2024 season and share my thoughts about it. I'm Izzo and let's get started. But before we start, I only have one rule. A driver must have raced at least 3 races for them to make it onto this list. So Jack Doohan will not make it into this list. And Oliver Bearman, he just barely makes it. So with that rule set, we have 23 drivers who have raced in the 2024 season. So let's start at the bottom and make our way up into the standings. And in 21st place, it's Logan Sargeant. He started the season in last, which was not the best of starts for Logan Sargeant for the 2024 season. In Silverstone, however, he finished 11th, which is his best of the season. And then of course in Netherlands he had that famous crash where his car was burning and he gave us that hard album cover-esque photo. I am giving him a score of decent to strong 3. And then in 22nd place, we have the man himself, Valtteri Bottas. He finished 19th in the season opener, just ahead of Sargeant, which is also not a great start for the season. He DNF'd in China, which I really don't think was his fault, but the DNF in China was his only DNF in the season until to the end of the season in Abu Dhabi. However, in Qatar, he actually finished in P11, which is good, but as we know, Zhou Guanyu did a much better job with their car on that weekend and got his team some points, and the only points of that season. And Valtteri, sadly for that season, ended up without any points. He ended the season with the bang though. Well, literally a bang, because he basically crashed into the back of Kevin Magnussen and got a puncture, which ultimately led him to a DNF. I actually do think he's a very good driver. I regard him as a very high quality driver. And now that he's a reserve driver for Mercedes, I do want to see him make an appearance in the Mercedes machinery so that we can see that top-notch driving of Valtteri Bottas back. Which is why I think he deserves a decent to a strong 4. Then in 21st place we have Liam Lawson, who obviously didn't do the full season. He only did 6 races. In his first race, replacing Daniel Ricciardo, he finished in 9th place, which is already impressive enough, but then he finished in 9th place again in Brazil. However, at the end in Abu Dhabi, he DNF'd. I do think he did a better job than Daniel in the 2024 season, and I also do believe that if he got the opportunity to do the full season, he would have gotten much more points than 4th. I even think that he would have gotten to the double digits with the points tally, which is why I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 for him. Then in 20th place we got Zhou Guanyu, who's actually started the season very strongly. In total he got 2 DNFs, one in Japan and one in Belgium. And obviously famously he got an 8th in Qatar, bringing in 4 points for his team and for himself. Ultimately, I think in F1 he had enough time to prove himself, and sadly he never really blossomed, which is why I'm giving him a light to decent 5. And then in 19th place we got Franco Colapinto. On his debut in Italy he finished P12, and then the weekend after he finished 8th in Baku, surprising almost everyone in the paddock and also the fans. But most importantly, James Vowles. He then finished 10th in the USGP in Austin and got another points finish for Williams. I think he's a very quick driver. He's really up there in the rookies, but we also saw that he was very crash happy towards the end of the season specifically. And at the end, I'm giving him a ranking of light to decent 7. And then in number 18, we also have another rookie, Oliver Bearman, who only did 3 races, barely making it to this list as I said before. On his Formula 1 debut he finished 7th, but it was a Ferrari. Then he did another 2 races, as you know, with Haas. Once in Baku, where he finished 10th and got another points finish and surprised us and the fans and everyone. Then in Brazil, on his 3rd and final race of 2024, he finished P12, which was also impressive enough even though he didn't get any points. I do think he's a very big up-and-coming talent, and I'm very excited to see him in F1, which is why I gave him a light to decent 8 on this list. Then in 17th place we have Daniel Ricciardo, who obviously didn't do the full season, but he did 18 races. I think that was very much enough for him to prove himself worthy of that Red Bull season that he was initially aiming for. It's sad to see him leave, and as much as we love Daniel, I don't think initially he really performed good enough to stay in F1, let alone drive for Red Bull in 2025. I do, however, hope to see him in other categories though. I mean, what about NASCAR? He loves it. He did the test drive in Austin a few years back and he basically loved it. So he could have an appearance in NASCAR, I think. But initially, he didn't meet the expectations of the Red Bull people, and that is why I'm giving him like a decent 6. Then in 16th place, we got Alexander Albon. He actually had 6 DNFs throughout the 2024 season, and he got no points until the 8th round in Monaco, in which he finished 8th, 9th in Britain, and then 9th in Italy with that crazy Williams straight line speed, which I think also helped the Colapinto debut. Then he finished 7th in Baku, which is his highest ever finish in the 2024 season. Then he got 3 DNFs in a row actually, which was one in Mexico, one in Brazil, and one in Vegas. Brazil was actually a DNS. He couldn't start the race because he crashed in the qualifying, which was obviously his own fault. Obviously, he's currently very invested in the Williams future, hoping that he and James Wells are able to bring Williams back to the top, or at least the midfield. Yeah, but only time will tell how that goes. I'm feeling a decent to strong 7. Then in 15th place we got Kevin Magnussen, who finished 12th in Bahrain, and then he finished 10th in Australia, his first points finish. DNF in Monaco. As we know, he had that crazy tangle in Monaco with Perez and his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. I actually forgot that he missed 2 races in 2024 season. First one in Baku because he had reached his penalty points limit, and then after his penalty point was set to 0 again, he just went on a rampage. He just said fuck all and then just went on a rampage. Actually, I think that the Nico and Kevin duo are actually a very underrated duo. I'm giving him a decent to strong 5. Then in 14th place we got Esteban Ocon, and for the Alpine guys it was a very difficult start of the season, wasn't it? And then famously in Brazil he got P2, and then his teammate Gasly got P3. Yeah, but overall pretty mid-season, but of course it's really difficult with a pretty mediocre car. But at the end of the day, I'm giving him a decent to strong 5. Then we got Lance Stroll, and oh boy, what a season he's had. And actually looking back at the finishing positions, he actually had a decent start to the season, which he tends to have. And then he just forgets that he's an F1 driver for the rest of the season. Yeah, I actually don't know how he's still on F1. I'm giving him a light to decent 3. Then we have Yuki Tsunoda in 12th place, and like the Alpine, I think the Racing Bulls didn't really have a good start to the season. His best finishing position was 7th, which he achieved 3 times actually, once in Australia, in Miami, and then once in Brazil. Yeah, but I think given how crap the car was at the start of the season, I think Yuki actually did a decent job. Also in beating both Daniel Ricciardo and Liam Lawson in performance and in points tally, which is why I'm giving him a strong 6 to light 7. Then we have Nico Hülkenberg, and what a season he has had. He definitely outperformed the car that he had for 2024. He got 1 DNF in Qatar, and then he got disqualified in Brazil because the track marshals actually pushed him back to the track. His best finish of the season was P6, which he did twice, back to back actually, once in Austria and one in Silverstone. His performance for the 2024 season was actually so good that even if he wasn't scoring any points, he was constantly finishing just outside the points. And in 2024, he's actually the driver with the most P11 finishes, which is why I gotta give him a strong 8 to a light 9, I have to. Then in 10th place we have Pierre Gasly, who also had a difficult season with that shitty Alpine car. His first points finish actually came in Monaco, even though he had that tangle with Esteban Ocon. And then just after that he had another points finish in Canada, in Spain, and then in Austria. 4 finishes back to back to back. He then had multiple points finishes, and then famously in Brazil again he finished on the podium with his teammate Esteban Ocon in 3rd place. And actually he had a pretty good end to the season as well. He finished P5 in Qatar, and then at the end he finished P7. For the car that he had, I really actually think he performed well that season, which is why I'm giving him a strong 7 to a light 8. Then in 10th place we have El Padre, as Josh Revel calls him, the Lord of the Eyebrows, finishing 9th in Bahrain, 5th, 8th, 6th, and having multiple like midfield kind of finishes in multiple races. But Saudi Arabia at the start of the season, he would finish P5, and he would not finish any better than that throughout the rest of the season. He only had one DNF this season, which happened in Mexico, which I think was his like 400th or 300th Grand Prix or something. It was something special, and he famously has some sort of curse for those special races. I am also giving him a strong 7 to a light 8. Then we have Sergio Perez, who had absolutely no right to finish this low in a Red Bull. Like, sure, Red Bull never really had the fastest car after like Miami or Imola, but still with like Max fighting at the top, I think Sergio must have been there to kind of at least not finish ahead of Max, but at least like support him in for the Constructors' Championship. He actually had a very decent start to the season, which he always tends to have, and then towards the end of the season it just tends to go absolutely shit out. He actually had 4 podiums in 5 races, finishing 5th only in Australia, then a bunch of points finishes, and from then on it just went downhill, didn't it? Like, he was constantly being outqualified, outpaced by the Racing Bulls, and therefore I'm giving him a strong 3 to a light 4. And then we have Sir Lewis Hamilton. His start of the season was decent, and then towards the mid-season he really got good, and at the end it just kind of came apart, didn't it? Especially in Brazil. I really hope he gets an improvement and pulls his socks out now that he is in a different team and now that he's driving for Ferrari as well. But yeah, for the 2024 season I'm giving him a light to a decent 7. Then just ahead of him we have George Russell, who finished 6th, and I think he is up there with one of the top performers in 2024. Like, now looking back at his finishing positions, he was really consistent all throughout the season, and then of course he got that important race in Vegas and also in Austria when Max and Lando crashed and collided at the front, where Russell was just able to swoop in and get that win. And obviously he got his win taken away from him in Belgium as well, which was arguably his best performance in 2024 season, maybe along with Las Vegas, but it was definitely up there. All in all, a pretty good season, pretty consistent, which is what Russell tends to do. I'm giving him a decent to strong 8. Then in P5 we have the Chile. Started the season off very well with 3 consecutive podiums, one of them of course being a win in Australia when Max got the DNF. He got a DNF in Canada and another DNF in Baku, which happened with Sergio Perez, which I'm still mad about because I read somewhere that if that crash didn't happen, Ferrari would have been the champions of 2024. Then he got another win in Mexico and finished the season in Abu Dhabi with the P2 and on the podium along with Charles. But at the end of the day, pretty decent season, pretty good driver. I hope he really does good in the Williams in 2025, and I'm giving him a score of light to decent 8. Then we have the Aussie Oscar Piastri in 4th place, who really didn't have the best start to the season, but as the performance of the McLaren car improved, his performances and results actually improved as well. And throughout the mid-season, he really was up there and got that win in Hungary, that controversial win at Hungary. And I don't know why other YouTubers were saying he didn't really perform that good or as good as expected, because for me, he was good enough that he was actually that good that throughout the mid of the season he was actually up there with Lando, and because of that all of this controversy actually happened, that papaya rules or whatever, that papaya rules thing happened. But yeah, he got another win in Azerbaijan and he got very unlucky at the end of the season in Abu Dhabi, but still him and Lando were able to bring it home and get that championship win for McLaren in 26 years. I think he did pretty good in 2024, which is why I'm giving him a light to a decent 8. Then comes in Charles Leclerc, and a lot can be said about him last season, because in my books he was one of the top performers for the 2024 season. For how often he tends to crash, he actually got only 1 DNF the last season, and he got 3 wins, one in Monaco, one in Monza, and one in Texas when it mattered the most. He got really bad 2 results, one in Austria and one in Britain, but if it wasn't for the bad results, I don't think Ferrari would have been where they are or where they were towards the end of the season. And with the car that he had, the performances he gave and delivered, he is definitely in my books, and that is why I'm feeling a decent to strong 9. Then we have Lando Norris, second in the standings. He initially got his first win in Miami, which led to multiple wins throughout the season. His average finish was pretty high throughout the season, but in Austria he finished 20th when he collided with Max. And then in Qatar he finished 10th when he got the penalty and he fell back. But I still think his performance in 2024 wasn't as good as Charles, given how good the car actually was. And in moments where it mattered most, he made a lot of mistakes, especially in like the first laps, the race starts. It was so bad that it literally became a meme. But yeah, when he initially fixed those mistakes and got up on his feet, it was too late, and then Max was just too far ahead. But still, I don't think any of us was actually expecting Lando to be fighting towards the front for the championship with Max. So I'm giving him a strong 8 to a light 9. Then we have in first place the champion of 2024, Max Emilian Verstappen. Had a very strong start, and which led us to believe that it's gonna be just another season like 2023 where he absolutely dominates the grid, gets like, I don't know, 12, 13 wins in a row. But it didn't actually happen, and the Red Bull car performance absolutely plummeted in comparison to the start of the season. But even though how bad that car was, he still was able to fight at the top. And I think that just proved that he is really the man. He is really worthy of being a 4-time champion. And yeah, start of the season was good. Mid-season, the car plummeted. And then at the end of the season, it came back, especially in Brazil. He really proved us that it's not really just the car, it's also him that makes the combination really work. And I think because of that, going into 2025, even though if Red Bull doesn't have the fastest car, he still will be able to fight at the top with the Mercedes, the McLaren, the Ferraris, which is why I'm giving him a decent to strong 9. And that's it. That's been my rating for the drivers in the 2024 season. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know how you would rank them. Now I'm just really looking forward to the 2025 season. So yeah, my name is Ben Izzo, and thank you for watching.